Good morning, it's another Friday, it's another cake bake day, so I thought today, had a look around, seeing what I've got, what I need to use up. I've got some bananas that are looking very sorry for themselves and they need something doing to them, so we are going to turn these into banana chocolate chip muffins. To do this, I've first of all got myself some cupcake trays. I use silicone ones just because I don't have to line them with paper cases, but if you've got normal tins at home, then just put the little paper cake cases in. If you've got cupcake cases, the smaller ones, that's fine, you'll do more of those. If you've got the deeper ones like these, which are sort of probably about 1.5 inches deep or maybe 2 inches deep, then they're muffins trays, so you'll probably make less. So I've got my silicone ones, I'm just going to place those on a baking sheet ready to go in a bit. Preheated my oven to about gas mark 5, 180 fan, and then ingredients wise, I'm going to need 70 grams of butter. I've actually used hard stalk margarine for this one to give that a try today. You need about 100 grams of chocolate. Plain chocolate probably works better, but it's up to you what you've got in. You need 3 very ripe bananas. I've got 4 here, so with the 4th one I'm probably going to freeze that. You can just take it out of its skin, pop it into a freezable container and just put it in the freezer and then take it out and use it again for things like this. It would be great to eat. It will come out a little bit brown and soggy. You need 1 egg. I've also got 50 grams of soft brown sugar. If you haven't got soft brown sugar, then go ahead, use white sugar, it'll be fine. The brown sugar just happens to make the sticky bananas quite nice and sweet. If you want to, you can add 1/4 teaspoon of vanilla paste or vanilla extract. If you've got vanilla flavouring, just use a little bit more. I'm going to go with about 1/2 teaspoon of baking powder in this, and with that I've got some flour. I've got about 200 grams of, I'm using self-raising flour. If you've only got plain flour at home, go with that, but maybe instead of 1/2 teaspoon of baking powder, go with 1 teaspoon of baking powder. Usually don't add any more baking powder into self-raising flour, but these muffins are going to be quite dense and aren't going to rise so well. So first job I'm going to do is to take my chocolate. I've already broken it down into some chunks, into the chunks of chocolate, and I'm just going to break those down into chocolate chips. If you've got chocolate chips, use them. I don't have any, but I do have some bars of chocolate that I keep in for cooking. With cooking chocolate, I find that you can buy special cooking chocolate, and that's okay. But you can buy very cheap supermarket brands of chocolate that are about 50p a bar, and they come in 100-gram bars. Now this isn't that type of chocolate, but that type of chocolate works really well for things like brownies and for jobs like this. This just happens to be what I have in today though. So that's chopped down into fairly small pieces, not quite as small as chocolate chips would be, but I quite like to find a little bit of chocolate when I'm eating things like this anyway. Next job is to take your bananas and you're going to put them into a large bowl and you're going to mash them. If you've got a potato masher at home, use it, you're welcome to, but I find it's just as easy with a fork. Like I say, the 4th banana I'm going to put into a container that is freezer proof and pop that into the freezer and use that another time. I'm just going to rinse my hands off because they're very sticky from those overripe bananas. I'm going to mash those down a little bit. And that will be fine. Then I'm going to turn the heat on my butter. I just want to melt it. So I don't particularly want a really hot flame, but I do want this just melted quite nice and quickly for you. While this butter is melting, I'm going to add into my bananas, my sugar. I'm going to add in my egg. I'm going to rinse my hands off, wash my hands, because I've handled the egg. And I'm also going to put in a little bit of the vanilla. my vanilla has been in my cupboard a little while, and so it had got stuck, the lid had got stuck and didn't want to come off today. If you find that happens, you can just run it sealed under the hot tap, and that should help to soften the sticky syrup that's made it stick. Just turn that down, it's starting to bubble and I don't really want it to cook. I'm going to get all that vanilla out, because vanilla is really expensive now to buy. Don't want to waste it. Butter, or the hard margarine that I'm using today, is nearly melted. I've seen recipes that use oil, so if you're struggling to get butter, but you've got some cooking oil at home, have a little look through and see if you can find, maybe try it with oil, or maybe try and find a recipe that uses oil. So that's good. I'm now going to add this to my mixture, which has now got the banana, sugar, the vanilla and the egg in. I'm going to try and keep it away from the egg, the butter, because I don't want to cook the egg. And I'm going to give this a stir around, and in stirring this around, I'm hoping that this egg will then combine. There we are. So the egg is now no longer a whole egg, and this is now looking very strange. So next at the stage is to get your baking powder and your flour. So depending on whether you've got plain or self-raising flour, depends on how much you're going to need here. Because I'm using self-raising, I'm going to use just half a teaspoon of the baking powder. In that goes. And then I'm going to add my chocolate chips and my flour mix all in. Now I like chocolate, so I'm going to make sure every bit of that chocolate goes in. And then the flour mix. I am just going to stir that around a little to get that baking powder mixed a little, because I don't want it to all end up in one muffin, otherwise it can taste a bit chemical. In that goes. And now, the trick here is to mix this until it just about looks mixed. So I'm stirring it around. We're not folding it in, so it doesn't matter if it's a wooden spoon at this stage or what you're using, but you just want this to come together but not be over mixed. It should almost look a bit like it needs more mixing. So that is perfect. I want to mix that more. My human tendency wants me to get that mixed more, but that's where I'm going to stop. Then I'm going to take my muffin trays and I'm going to fill them about 2/3 full. These aren't going to be like sponge cakes, they're not going to rise masses and masses, but by the same token I don't want them to overflow, because they will rise a little bit with that baking powder that's gone in. Now if you get any of these left over, or you make masses of them and you think our family's not going to eat all those, that's okay. You could always take them, and once they're cooled, sorry, excuse our dog, once they're cooled you could put them into a freezer proof container and pop them in the freezer. I'm going to do the same now with the other muffin cases. I've got 12 of those, so that's 6 there. I'm going to take that off, and because our dog's decided to start barking, I'm going to do exactly the same, making sure I use up all this mix in the other 6 cases, and then I'm going to put these into the oven for about 20 minutes. I'm going to have a little look. They won't necessarily be springing back when you touch them lightly in the centre, but they should be golden brown and cooked through. So after about 20 minutes, the banana and chocolate chip muffins have come out of the oven. They're a lovely golden colour, as you can see here, and if I touch it lightly with my little finger, it holds its shape. If I took it out and they sunk straight back down, they're not done. Okay, so hints and tips for you. You could use chocolate chips. You don't have to if you don't want to. It might be quite nice to do banana and another fruit. So for example, I've got some dried cranberries in my cupboard, and I wondered if that actually might be quite a nice a nice addition to that one. Or I've also got some fresh blueberries, and I wondered if banana and blueberry might go. I'm not sure, but it's something you could try and mix the recipe up with a little bit. Also to say to you, if you've got smaller, these are muffin trays, as I said earlier on, if you've got smaller cupcake cases, then they will take less time to cook. These took just about 20, maybe 22 minutes. In smaller cake cases, they would take a little bit less time. As you can see, nice and golden brown on the bottom. These have been out about 10 minutes now. If I cut one in half, then they're quite stodgy on the inside, because muffins very often are. Lots of chocolate in there. Obviously, with the chocolate being very, very hot, please take great care and don't eat them until the chocolate has cooled down enough, because when it's still molten, it would stick to a child's or yourselves mouth and potentially burn them. So I hope you enjoy that one. Thank you.